Okay, now can you hear me? I'm going to proceed as if I can. I think you can hear me. If somebody could put something in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Yay! I can IT today. Barely. Anyway, getting back to the giveaway. So, Raspberry Pi 0W. Not a 2. Not the latest incarnation of it. This is one that I've had sitting around for a year. Haven't been using it, and I know that they're kind of hard to get right now, so I thought I'd give one away. Anyway, so I reached 100 subscribers. Actually, I think I'm like at 110. So, bonus! I'll also throw in one of those little red and white cases for holding it. That's for the extra 10 subscribers. Anyway. Yeah, there's a 10 to 15 second lag. I hate that. But at least there's sound now, right? So, let's get on with this with the giveaway. So, let me get rid of this. And there are, now the thing you had to put in was I love Raspberry Pi hashtag, and there are 16 unique entries. It looked like Justin might have been having a little bit of trouble with this, so I went and counted them up, and there's at least one guy that's in Australia, so he's not going to be able to win. And then there's another person that accidentally misspelled I love Raspberry Pi. They said raspberry with an A instead of berry with an E, so I'm sorry. If I had taken a look yesterday, I would have reached out to you and told you it was misspelled, but I didn't look yesterday, so too much going on. Anyway, so let's go ahead and pick the lucky winner. As Justin pointed out, and I forgot, if the winner's in Canada, I'm going to have to ask you to do an integration or figure out some kind of integral for a transcendental number. No, it won't be that hard. Okay, it'll probably be what is 1 plus 1 or something ridiculous like that. Or maybe it would be the first 200 digits of pi, and anyway. But I will send to Canada and anyone in the US. So let's go ahead and start. And RetroTech Chris is the winner. So RetroTech Chris has 48 hours from this point in time to contact me with his mailing information and stuff, and then I will ship it out. If for some reason Chris doesn't get to me in 48 hours, then I'll pick another random winner. So anyway, that's pretty much it. There's this, and like I said, I'll throw in a little case for it. Some of the stuff that that's going on right now, you probably recognize this logo. I got a external 28 DB25 pin Raspberry Pi, not building a raw SCSI. It's a blue SCSI kit so that I can get several of my machines working without having to put it inside. So I got that to do this weekend. I've got the next 2 modules scripted out for the Hypercard programming course. And believe me, eventually, someday, we'll actually get to programming. I know there's a huge amount of stuff we have to get there before we get to it, but hey, RetroTech Tech Chris, you're online. So you won, dude. Or he's in the chat. Anyway. So I'll get those sessions recorded this weekend and out sometime during the week. Probably do a couple more live streams on, example coding and stuff, because I know it's a little bit dry just hearing all the Hypercard details, but you kind of need to have that reference material to get to the programming. So it is what it is. I always put the chapters in so you could skip around. You don't have to listen to everything, obviously. What else? That's pretty much it. Don't want to take up any more of anyone's night, so I'm going to look at the comments really quick here and see if there's anything going on. No integral needed. Oh, good, because I wouldn't be able to solve one anymore anyway. Ron's computer, videos, yeah, man. We were silent for 20 minutes on the last stream. Darn technology. Yeah. No, I shouldn't have been goofing around watching Joe yak about his stuff. And then I spent a good probably minute, maybe two, before I realized that the April Fool's stream was not real. I guess I'm getting a little slow in my old age. I did enjoy watching Justin do his giveaway, so that was pretty cool. And congrats to Retro Techie for winning that. That's awesome. I downgraded my G5 to run, what's the earliest version that runs on that of X? Gosh, now it escapes me now. I can't remember what it is. Oh, shoot. It's written on a stupid CD. Tiger. Because I want to be able to do the OS 9 applications, because, HyperCard will work in that. And I'm trying to figure out a better way to stream stuff. And I hate using emulators for that kind of thing. So I might switch over to try doing stuff from the G5. We'll see how it works out. And Joe needs to get his G4 tower from the shop at some point. Yeah, that would be cool. The stream needs to go at least 10 minutes. Well, I think I accomplished that. I could chatter on for another hour, but you guys would get really tired of it. Yes, 8 bits are all you need, Joe. I agree. As long as you have stacks of them and you can add them together. As wide a bus as possible. 1-bit fever dreams. 1 bit is all you need. That is true for graphics. You just need ones and zeros, right? I wrote an accounting system with nothing but ones once. No, I didn't. He will probably get to you within 48 minutes. He's here in the chat. Yeah, you still got to email that address to me, though. And the email address is in the notes for the short for the giveaway. So if for any reason you can't send me an email, or you don't want to do the email, I don't care. You just reach out and contact me and give me the address and stuff for it, whichever way you want to do it. Oh, email sent, so we're good. The last bit is just parody anyway. Depends on the architecture, man. And that's the rest of it is me blabbing and you guys not hearing me and you telling me you can't hear and there's no sound. Okay. Well, what do you have planned after the Hypercard series? That's a good question. I have an answer for that. Microsoft. Man, you could tell I was a Microsoft Stack developer for most of my career. Macintosh C programming. So I've been messing around with ThinkC, and I was a Unix C programmer when I was in college, and kind of missed that environment. And being able to do a core dump and a segmentation fault just because you screwed up your printf and used memory that was poorly allocated and stepped all over the operating system. And I did a lot of DOS programming when I first started in C. In fact, it didn't even have. It was a food costing application for a company, and they wouldn't let me spend the $500 it cost for an interface library, so I wrote one from scratch because they would pay me for 6 months of effort, which cost them much more because I'm not an accountant and I don't understand why capital expenditures of $500 make any difference if you're going to spend thousands on an employee's salary, but whatever. I don't own a business, right? Different accounting bucket. So I wrote this user interface library in DOS, and they also wanted me to make it multitasking. DOS doesn't do multitasking, by the way, in case you didn't know. However, there is an interrupt that you can call to kind of force it to switch between two threads. And they wanted it to print reports the same time people were doing data entry. So I did. And you had a little throttle where you could say, how much time should it spend on the printer? Because what it would do is go bzzzt. And then you could enter stuff, bzzzt, enter stuff. Bzzzt. It would print one line at a time and take forever to print a report. Or you could do the slider over a little bit and it would let you print faster, but you couldn't enter data as fast. I told them you should have used Unix or some other operating system if you wanted it to, do that. But anyway, that was an interesting job to do because I was fresh out of college and I needed a database. And this is back in the old days where btrieve was like the best thing you could get for DOS. I wrote one just using a file structure, just a regular DOS file and a struct in C to define each record. And what you did was scan through the file to the position based on the size of the record to get the nth record and pull it out of the file, do stuff, and put it back. So totally non-relational database. Anyway, but it was a lot of fun trying to invent the wheel all over again because they wouldn't spend money on software. So that lasted for 2 years. Anyway, horror stories from the early days. There was a question there somewhere, and I went off on a tangent because I'm getting old and I do that. Reminds me, okay, G4 Tower. Yeah, I think I'm losing people. Anyway, so I think I'll do a series on ThinkC. Yeah. I really kind of like that environment, so that's probably where I'll go next is doing C. You have that book. Yeah, it's not a bad book. Yeah, I've never programmed on the Mac other than Hypercard and Pascal, and it's kind of neat. I did run into some issues because these books are written for earlier versions of the OS, so the library routines and everything are a little different depending on whether I usually use 7.6.1 just because that's what I like to use, and these books are written for like 7.0.1, so things changed a little bit. You did an ancient JSON equivalent of sorts. Yeah. Is that pronounced JSON or Jason or son? And the J is silent. Like in GIF, which is a peanut butter, not a graphic file format. I don't care what the originator said. To me, it's always going to be a hard G. Yeah, I guess that was kind of a JSON solution. Um, I also did a report writer where you could do a text document and use um, curly braces to identify where fields would be. It was like an early markup language before the internet. Um, so that was kind of cool. Maybe I could have invented HTML, right? No. Um, Part 6 JSON lives. It's pronounced JavaScript object notation. Yeah, well, it's an acronym. I work for the government. Everything's an acronym, even if it's not. Um, yeah. So another thing I did that was a lot of fun when the web first came out, the company I worked for was like, we got to do this web thing. So me and another guy scrambled. I learned HTML because I kind of like the interface stuff. And he did some back end development. And we were able to crank something out over a weekend so that we could prove to our boss that, it was a small consulting company. Yeah, we can do web development. Yeah, we know how to do that. No, we didn't. um, let's see. I've messed around with PHP quite a bit before version 3. I actually wrote a something like a Java tag library. I forget what they call it. I never really worked in Java, but I found out later after I did it, it was a templating framework for PHP where you could do simple looping and stuff in the definition. What's my profession? Well, 40 years ago, it was a C programmer. And then eventually I switched to doing web development, and I did a little bit in PHP, mostly just on the side. Everything in my career has been the Microsoft stack. So it was all ASP, ASPX, C Sharp, VB, .NET. Because I worked for a company that was afraid of C Sharp. They thought it had to be, we went from VB script to VB.NET. They didn't care what the propeller heads wanted to do. They just decided they were going to do that. I did Windows desktop front end development and also web development. And then I ended up, because somebody needed a favor, working in Microsoft Dynamics CRM, doing plugin development for that in C Sharp, as well as trying to make it work the way it's not intended to, because every customer wants it to work a different way. I did that for a while. And then most recently, I was brought in as a contract architect for a poorly designed and written C Sharp, Microsoft Dynamics CRM system. They migrated from a mainframe system to that, so all their processes were batch oriented, and then they got dumped into a single record environment that was just weird. So they tried to customize around it, and that was bad. So I was brought in to clean that up. A management position opened up, so I now work for the state of Michigan as a IT manager. And so what I do is I tell my staff how I would solve the problem in the 90s so that they can laugh and say, that's funny, Eric, you want to do it that way? And I'm like, if you don't come up with a better solution, we're going to do it the way I used to. That usually makes them work twice as hard, so that they don't do my way, they do the right way. Because one of my techniques is to start whiteboarding the wrong answer or the wrong solution or a bad architecture, because they'll jump in and correct it. If you ask them to go up to the whiteboard and just start doing, show me how you would do this, they won't do it. But But if you start showing them the wrong answer, they'll correct you constantly. Consulting, if you can't be part of the solution, there's good money to be made prolonging the problem. That is key to consulting. You're right. And I worked in government for several years, so as a consultant, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. But as far as managing people, I've done it a little bit across my career. Like one of the small consulting companies I worked for didn't have interns. And I told him, I says, gee, why don't we have interns? And the owner looked at me and says, great, you go out and find some interns. You bring them in. You give them the work to do. You babysit them or whatever. And actually, one of those interns, we paid him well because we thought they're doing real work. We're going to hire programmers, He wrote a bunch of widgets for web development, like calendar tools and stuff like that. He went on, he was able to convince his dad, who had a construction company, not to go into construction. He got a degree in software development. I think it was telecommunications, but anyway. Started his own web development company, and I lost track of him over the years, but then ran into him, and he had a multi-million-dollar web development company, and recently sold it and retired. And the guy is maybe 45 years old now. So I credit his success to my tutelage. Well, I don't know. Obviously, he was a smart kid. But he did tell me it was helpful to have that internship because he was able to turn it around and convince his dad, yes, I can do this. And it proved to be, a great deal for him. There was one point where I almost worked for him, but it didn't pan out. The timing wasn't right, and frankly, I don't really like doing web development that much. So, anyway, do you program in C++? I never have programmed in C++. I went from C to doing, VB6. If anybody has ever worked in VB6, you have my sympathies. That was the god-awful worst environment to work in for Windows 95 and Windows 98. If you don't know what DLL hell is, that's where it comes from. Worked in that right from DOS C, jumped into Windows development in VB6, and then from VB6 went on to doing web development. So I never did anything in C++. But I like doing C. Actually, I like Unix. If I really could do anything, it would be to go back to Kernighan and Ritchie land and just do that. But that's ancient history now. What else? What other questions do you guys have? Because I've got the world's largest collection of trivia in my head, and it's completely worthless knowledge. I have forgotten way more than I remember. But if you want to hear what I think I described this in my live stream. Back before the internet, if you wanted to learn how to do a new technology, you basically went to Borders and spent all your time getting magazines, because there was no, Stack Overflow. You actually had to solve problems and write your own code, or you could borrow from somebody in a magazine or something, but usually you couldn't wait a month to produce a solution. You had to do it then. So I don't know if we write better code now or worse code. I know we write more code because of what the resources we have available. I don't know if it's really better code. But again, it depends on the person. I'm probably your average mediocre programmer. I just have a lot of experience, and that helps me with managing people. Because if they can't come up with a solution, I'll recommend something. They might laugh about it, but I will. Let's see. 1-bit fever dreams. I went basic plus logo, C, C sharp, started C++, can't talk tonight, C++, but then went heavy into Java for a hobby project. Ooh. I looked at Swing when it first came out for Java because I thought that might be a good cross-platform development to learn. I don't like Java. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. One of the more interesting programming languages back in college, if you were in computer science, you had to write your own programming language and build your own compiler for it and have it output object code, like assembly or something, or at least, some kind of interpretive environment. So I designed a computer language. I had another guy who wrote the manual because he really didn't know how to do the heavy IT stuff. And we had one guy who knew 8088 assembly. So I wrote the lexical analyzer and everything for the language and output pseudo assembly code that he interpreted and went, oh, okay, so this is what you're trying to do. And then corrected it because I didn't really know assembly that well. And that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I lost all of the old code that I had from college. I wish I still had it. But I did look at Java because I was searching for that holy grail cross-platform desktop environment where you could write it once and then read it never. And Java seemed to be the thing. I went through the same thing for trying to do mobile web apps and mobile applications. Way too many frameworks were being generated, and it was like you would pick a framework and you'd start learning how to do it, and it'd be gone in a week because the developers jumped onto something else. So I gave up on that. Yeah, I don't know if anyone really likes Java. I think they put up with it because they have to. And we all have to make a living. Yeah. It's just maddening to me that in many cases a single code library couldn't fit on the HDD of some of my vintage PCs. Yeah. In the old days, I played around with a K-Pro when I was in college because I had an old one lying around. Old meaning it was a couple of years old. And I kind of liked the idea that I could actually mess with the operating system on the disk. And if I didn't like how something worked, I could change it. How did I grow that awesome beard? Guinness? No, that's not how I did it. Just natural ability. And I cut my teeth on Unix, so I must be one of those, suspender wearing, pot-bellied Unix gurus, but not really. Let's see. I used to wax the mustache. The beard used to be down to, well, not quite my belly button, but I trimmed it last year. The hair's been long for several years because, I'm old enough not to care what people think. I also do attend, well, not the last 2 years, but the Michigan Renaissance Festival. I'm part Scottish, so I do an impression of a Jacobite, which of course is not the Renaissance period, but when they set up Renaissance festivals, they purposely said they wanted to go to 1600 so that guys could wear kilts. Anyway, so that's what I do. I've hand sewn some of my clothes for my outfit. I knit because my wife knits, and I wanted a Balmoral bonnet, the slouchy hat that a Scotsman wears. And she said, here's my long list of stuff. You're not on it. Learn to knit. So I learned to knit. So I make bonnets and kilt hose garters. I knit those. I've done a few other things too, but knitting's not really a passion for me. It was more of a necessity. Yet people just think they like Java. Yeah. You know, talking about old programming languages, some of the ones I came across when I was in college I thought were pretty cool. Snowball. It's it's not Lisp, but it's kind of in that kind of a category of languages, and it was used for a lot of text manipulation, like like you would use awk or something like that to do text processing. And that was kind of fun. Kpro, gonna be doing. You know, I wouldn't mind getting my hands on a Kpro or even an emulator. I don't know if there's any Kpro emulators. I assume there probably are, but that was kind of fun to use. I only used it for a few weeks because the department head that I worked for wouldn't let me keep it. In fact, I tried to get a Lisa that way back in, when was it? 87? Because the engineering services department that I made cables for and ran cables for had one they weren't using. And I'm like, could I borrow that? And they're like, no. You can't touch it. It costs too much. I'm like, but nobody's using it. Can I have it? So, it's too bad I wasn't able to use that. Yeah, Maryland Renaissance Festival is probably one of the best ones. The Michigan Renaissance Festival is kind of a, if there was a low rent district to the Maryland Festival, it would be the Michigan Renaissance Festival. The grounds that it's built on used to be a landfill, to give you an idea of how bad it is. And it's a quagmire. If it rains, we call I hang out at the Guinness pub a lot, and we call it Lake Guinness. There's a giant puddle that fills in front of it, and you have to walk through it if you're going to leave the pub. So I learned early just to stay in the pub and drink all day. Anyway, so if you're ever at the Michigan Renaissance Festival, my wife and I, well, I don't know what we're going to do going forward, but we went every single day, every weekend. So it's quite difficult. She uses a cane to walk and has back issues, so we're probably not going to do that. But we'll still go. Assembly was my third language after Italian and English. Yeah, I learned some assembly while I was learning C, which was really a good way to learn C, actually, because you looked at the output in assembly from the C program so that you could both learn assembly and also how C worked. I think that was on a Motorola 20 using Xenix. Microsoft actually had a Unix at one time. But that was quite a long time ago, and my memory's a little fuzzy. Yeah, part of me wants to learn assembly language. Maybe I'll do that for the Macintosh 68K. So that would be kind of cool. After C, maybe I'll do C first and then assembly. But I'm open to, if there's people that want to learn a particular language, or if there's some kind of software development environment I'm going to say it has to be a Macintosh and preferably a 68K. Although I am looking into AUX. I'd like to get a machine I can run that on. I know you can run it in an emulator now. They've got it going that well, but I like using real hardware. So I don't know. Do you guys want me to continue babbling, or are we good? Because it's 9:41. I usually try to keep these to a half hour. Is there anybody still left? I can't tell. How many people do we have? Going 6 concurrent users. Okay. You tell me, what is your favorite computer programming language? Even if you're not a computer programmer, almost everybody's dabbled in something. Tried to learn 68,000 assembly. It's really hard unless you know the architecture down pat. Yeah. And you know that the using the ROM and all the routines in the ROM is a little unique. Um, Wanted to know how to crack Mac games. Yeah. You know, Gruz, Kill Gruz. I'd like to see him do a series on cracking. Um, yeah, and I've got 6 people in, and content is content. Yeah, I get it. Um, you know what's really odd is that it feels like a one-way conversation because I'm not hearing anybody talk. I wish there was an option to just have everybody pile in, other than doing, the hosted stream thing. Just if YouTube had some way where you could invite people to just jump in from the chat, would be cool. I don't know. Maybe they'll do that someday. So let's see. What other oddball computer languages? Yeah, I think you're right. Gruz did say he doesn't really know how to crack games. Or he did, yeah. He's not in it, he just knows about the process for doing it. Yeah, I know we could use SteamYard, or StreamYard, not SteamYard. I've also done some steampunk stuff, although I kind of got out of that. The mid-Michigan area for steampunk kind of died out. But yeah, yeah, we should try that sometime. Just kind of do a free-for-all in StreamYard. I know that sometimes, you guys, when you're doing live streaming, it tends to end up being that. But I'd like to see some of the, some other people jump in and make it a free-for-all. He's making a game, though. It's been years in the making. You're talking about Gruz? Because he did Flappy Mac. In fact, I bought the disc because he's got the code on it. And because I wanted to look at the code. It's in Turbo, or not Turbo C. It's in ThinkC. And, oh, he's doing something other than Flappy Mac. That's cool. I'd like to see what he comes up with next. He definitely has a good sense of what the classic Mac game gestalt is. So I'd like to see him develop that more. I'm kind of getting into game development, but it's a new area for me. I'm used to doing data on forms kind of development. Yeah, he's got a really cool stream. Or do you think this is a cool stream? I don't know if this is a cool stream or not. Never been called or considered cool. I've always been the nerd. So, but I'm good with that. I am what I am. So, oddball programming languages. Lisp is odd. I don't understand any of that stuff, and nor do I want to. I had a substitute professor. Maybe he was an adjunct professor. Is that what they call them? They're not really tenured. Anyway, it was this guy, and he came to class carrying his Mac. I think it was a 512 in the backpack case, and made a big show of pulling it out and setting it up and everything. He was an AI programmer, and he was teaching a 2-credit Fortran class that we all had to take. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. It's not hard to teach other programming languages if you've got a syllabus and stuff. The problem is that he wanted us to write an expert system in a 2-credit computer class. When you got a full load of classes, you don't want to spend 4 credit hours on a 2-credit class. And there were people in there that were not in the CS program. They were electrical engineers and stuff like that. They really didn't want to program. And this guy was, forcing people to work in teams together, which is always awkward when you're doing coding. Or at least back. So he got all pissed. So the professor turned around and he had us, he waited, he even kind of pseudocoded it out. And I sat there because I understood exactly what to do, cranked it out in about 15 minutes and left. I found out that most of the people didn't finish it. They just got up and walked out of the class. So I passed, but never had that instructor again, thank God. Did Oracle consulting for a few years. Well, that requires an awful lot of work, from what I understand. I've never touched Oracle. Program SQL language for Microsoft SQL servers. I'm a ham-fisted DBA in the sense that I'm a developer. So I've had to do, database architecture design, stuff like that. But the true DBAs, when they look at it, go, "Oh my God, I'm not letting you put this on my server." So, there's that. But a lot of DBAs that I've found don't know how to do SQL optimization, and don't know how to, because that's a developer's problem. They're more like server system people rather than SQL people. So I always found that odd. Yeah, Lisp is just weird. I taught myself Python a few years ago just because my daughter she has a CS degree. And yeah, I know. She was going to go into graphic design, and she's really good at it, but I helped her get an internship where I was working, and the best thing that happened out of that is two things. She earned enough money that she bought the CS6 suite, so she didn't have to do a subscription, and which came like a few years later. And she also learned that she really doesn't like people telling her how to do art. And I said, "Well, honey, that's what a job is people telling you that they want you to use the crappy color scheme that their organization insists is their thing. It might make your graphics look like a Christmas tree, but that's called work." So she switched over to a CS major. She doesn't like programming, but she did have to do some game development in Python using some libraries and stuff. And her and a couple of her friends called me one night and said, "Can you teach us Python?" And I said, "Can I have one night?" And she said, "Yeah, we could do it Friday night." So I scrambled and learned enough about Python so that I could help her learn how to do Python. And really, the biggest thing she said that helped her was telling her, "Is there a library for that?" And she's like, "I don't know." I said, "Go look." And she looked and she said, "Oh my God, there's a library that does half the work." I'm like, "That's the secret to Python." So, what else we got here on the comments? Yeah, Oracle, if you can do Oracle, man, I'm not worthy because I'm a SQL hack. And that's really, my career was mostly learning how to do like a master of none or a master of few, but I could do just about anything. If you work for small consulting companies, you are the analyst. You do the requirements capture. Oh, you do sales and sales support too. And you also do all the development. And you design the database. And you do installation and support. Ad nauseum. It's an organization where there's something called separation of duties. And you don't have developers touching the database. They pass their scripts on. The VA team does it. Whereas in my world, private industry, you do whatever you got to do to get it done within time, within budget and within on schedule, or you work 60, 80-hour weeks until you do. So Oracle's very command line. I haven't seen too much audio stuff for Pis. I do have a Pi camera that I picked up, but I've never really done much with it. I did, the usual bird feeder cam thing. Maybe I'll give that away too. I don't know. It's an older one. It's not a great camera. What else? My career is jack of all trades as well. I think a lot of us are. One of the things I think that's interesting is I'm curious to find out what the programming skills are of most of the people that have definite hardware skills, because I'm definitely in the programming house and I'm just learning the hardware. I've done half-assed, excuse the French, I've done half, bodgy stuff. I sat on a blue SCSI for almost a year. It was like 230 days because I did a botched soldering job, and Eric helped me out a lot trying to diagnose it, but eventually I'm like, I must have just screwed it up because we did all the tests, it just wasn't working. Well, when they had the marathon session where they were, building blue SCSIs, I'm like, damn it, I'm going to sit down this weekend and see if I can get this thing to work. All I had to do was resolder. I didn't have any, bridges of solder or anything. I just had crappy solder joints. And watching all of you, frankly, has taught me so much this year. I'm forever grateful to anybody and everybody that has been streaming their repair stuff. And I'm not just talking about Bruce and his impossible, swamp boat anchor, thing. I'm talking about anything and what everybody's doing. I've learned so much this last year that I'm forever grateful and humble. You guys do great stuff. And even if you're not doing YouTube streams, if you're just, if you're blogging stuff and explaining things, Eric's, Helgeson's thing that Ron streamed, where he read his blog about kind of his ultimate 7.1 system. I'm like, I'm going to get some of those things and put them on here because, that was pretty cool. And it's not really complicated stuff. It's just if you happen to know something and other people don't know it, it helps to have it out there. And again, I'm not worthy when it comes to the hardware stuff, but I'm getting better. I'm going to do my second blue SCSI kit. Knock on wood, or plastic monitor, whatever. Hopefully it works out of the box this time. I will say I need to get better tools. I did buy something recently that I really like. And I think Bruce has one of these, or has used one of these, but it's helpful if it was the right way. Yeah. One of these really cheap Amazon, Chinese. In fact, it's got some really bad English on it, but it doesn't matter. The thing works. And you can double up the lenses on it. It's been a lot better just having the 3.5 magnification, because these old eyes, I actually wear glasses, but I can focus close. But these old eyes suck at trying to do surface mount soldering. And I've tried to do some, and I've done some really sloppy stuff that works. But I tell you what, using that, I don't have the money for a microscope or something, but that actually does pretty good. You do get a little close, I will say that. So if you like to suck rosin core solder fumes, then it's for you. Make sure you've got some, a fan or something to manage that. I'm probably, killing brain cells every time I solder. Um, I'm reading some of the comments now. I'm in the same boat as you. Software and using them is my world, but I got fast-tracked into soldering in the past 2 years. Yeah. But you know what? It's a worthy skill to have. My daughter mods Game Boy Advances and stuff like that. I don't pretend to know that much about it, but she's done some where it's the two-screen Game Boy. What is it? A DS, whatever, something. And there's a mod you can do where you take off the top screen, and that way you can use it like a Switch handheld. But you have to solder, essentially surface mount an amplifier and a speaker so that you got audio. And you're talking about really tiny soldering. And she was struggling with it, and I helped her one night. And if you guys have seen what's the movie? Toy Story, right? Where you got the old guy that's sewing Woody's arm back on, and he's shaking like this, and then he just deftly sews. Well, that was me trying to hit this 1 millimeter, square spot to solder something on, and I'm like shaking all over the place, and I went boop, just one touch, and I got the wire on, and I'm like, pretend that you're an expert. Just say, there you go. But really, it was just dumb luck. Rudy, thanks for showing up. Night, everybody. Or night, Rudy. I can solder. The only problem I have is that after I solder something, it no longer works. You know what? I've been fortunate that most of the classic Macs and stuff that, because I recapped my Performa 550 after watching a lot of videos, because I don't do anything until, I do something like that. And yes, I pulled a couple of pads up, but I watched one of Bruce's videos on how to, use the wire to bodge it, and it all worked. And the only reason why I even tried to do it is, A, it smelled like fish, so obviously it needed to be recapped. But I only paid $25 for the thing. I got it from a retired teacher. And sometimes I just have stupid luck. Because Michigan is not really a big high-tech place. I wish I was out on the coast where I could get some of that stuff people leave out on the curbside. But I get lucky sometimes. I got that for $25. So I'm like, what am I out if I fail, right? I could probably buy another logic board for it or something like that. But it worked. I recently picked up a 180C PowerBook, and it was somebody that had it for years. They had no idea what the value was, and she wanted $100 for it. I offered a 75. And she jumped at it because nobody else was, looking for it. And no leaking on the video board, fortunately, so I was able to recap that. I made an attempt, because there wasn't a Console 5 recapping kit available. I made an attempt at figuring out which caps to get, and what's his name, Luke at Console 5, when he responded to me, it's like, hey, I tried to figure this out, but if you've got time to look at it, would you? And he looked at it and he says, not bad. I changed 3 of them out of the 5 that you picked, but I'm like, well, I'm glad I sent it to him. So he put a kit together for it, which is great. The board hadn't leaked yet, so I was able to take a detailed picture of it, because Ron's got a board that's got some cruftiness where I think he lost a few components. So hopefully that'll help him figure that out. But I got it for $75, so and it's in decent shape. Although when I opened it up to pull out the hard drive, because it was very musical when it started. And anytime you did something, it was like, okay, master, I'll try. Um, you know, it was really sick. Pulled it out and put my PowerBook Blue SCSI into it from my 520C. Um, couldn't get it to work at first. Ron gave me a helpful suggestion on getting it to work, and it was beautiful. It worked, you know, his suggestion solved the problem. And by the way, that was to use the Apple Legacy Recovery CD as your boot, because it's built to boot just about anything. So it worked. Got the SCSI adapter from it after I went and bought one because she couldn't find it, and then she found it the day after I got it. So, you know, the investment in it was what, $6 for a recap kit, an internal Blue SCSI, so that was the most expensive part, and $13 for an external adapter because I want to use this. I want to use this kit to be able to swap things around. I mean, I've got a little bit of a network going, but the 180C doesn't have a network adapter. Am I going to attend VCF Midwest? I'd love to, but we've got some vulnerabilities as far as COVID goes in our family, and we've decided that we're going to kind of wait things out. So I don't, you know, Ren Fair is in August. We're probably not going to do that. Oh, September? It's possible, you know. I don't really travel much, mostly because, you know, my wife can't really go very far in a car. And really, it wouldn't feel fair for me to go to something like that without her being able to come. Even if it was just so that she could go antiquing. Big Hall China collector. She is so into Hall China. I think she's got over 300 pieces right now. And I encourage it because every time she buys Hall, I'm able to say, oh, look at this retro computer thing. You know, so it works out. I even have because I'm into space stuff, there's a Hall picture. It's uglier than sin, but it's like a 20th anniversary space, 2001 A Space Odyssey thing. So our hobbies cross a little bit. So she'd probably like to go just so that she could stay and go antique shopping. While I'm antique shopping at a show. So yeah, it's possible. I might go. I'd love to go. Where's Midwest at? Is it? I'd love it if it was in Ohio, because Ohio's just one state away. Is that the Chicago one or the one that's somewhere near Chicago? Because that's kind of Midwesty. Anyway. Yeah, I'd like to do that. Never been out east. I've been out west. No, wait a minute. I went to Yale once for a contract and stayed the day. Chicago, Illinois. Okay, is it actually in downtown Chicago or in the outskirts? Elmhurst. Isn't that where oh shoot, guy across the Atlantic in a single engine plane. Can't remember the dude's name. You know, first one to cross the Atlantic solo. Isn't that Elmhurst where he was out of as a pilot? Anyway, doesn't matter. Ancient history. Yeah, I'll think about it. I'll have to see. You know, September's far enough away I could plan for it too. Yeah. Is it difficult to get lodging? Like, do you need to plan it way in advance, or it's pretty easy? That's another thing I'd have to think about. But yeah, cool. Yeah, I think it'd be fun. Maybe I could bring some junk to trade. Not junk, stuff. I do have, and I think I did a short the other day where I showed off Chuck Yeager. Yeah, no, I was thinking of if you get it in time. So you can't wait until the week before. It probably needs to be a month in advance or something, is what I'm guessing. Lindbergh. I'm trying to think of, Lindbergh, actually. It just seems like Elmhurst struck a brain cell there. Oh, okay, so it's at the Clarion. Kind of. All right. So that's convenient. I don't know. I'll think about it. I've watched the videos of people showing off, the stuff there, and it sounds like it's a lot of fun. So I'd like to do it. I was going to say, I picked up a Mac Plus 20 years ago. No, not 20. 15 years ago. Somebody from, someone I knew, don't even remember where it was from, needed help setting up a printer and asked if I could do it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, because you end up being the extended family tech support guy, And she, I got the printer set up and everything. She says, would you like to have this old computer? And I'm like, oh, a Macintosh Plus. Yes, I wouldn't mind having that at all. So, that's how I kind of got started with this. I'm like, Mac Plus is what I used in college. So that'd be kind of cool. And then I got an SE from MSU, Michigan State University Surplus Store. They were still using Macs in some of the departments. They were just sitting there gathering dust, or they, were collecting data from something. So once in a while they would trickle through surplus, and I picked up a Mac SE there. And then some guy on Craigslist had an SE FDHD that he wanted $20 for, so I picked that up. I think the SE from surplus cost me $50 at the time. Yeah, so those are the three classics I have. And then, the Performa 550 I picked up, like I said, from a teacher. I got the 520C, the PowerBook 520C. It was there's an auction site that my wife and I frequent, and it happened to come up in auction there. And I think I was bidding against somebody who's big on the in one of the Facebook communities, and we ended up getting chatting about it while the auction was going on, because I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to drop out. It ended up going for like $100. And, my wife's looking at it like, that's a lot of Hull China, And I'm like, yeah, but I really want it. Anyway, he said, oh, yeah, I bid all over the place for this stuff. And then one of the bidders dropped out. So maybe he took, pity on me or something. I don't even remember the guy's name, so don't ask. So I picked up that 520C, and it was actually in pretty decent shape, although, the hard drive still works, but it makes that doop, doop, doop sound occasionally when it's starting up, so I know it's going. So that one I put one of the PowerBook Blue Scuzzies in. Right now it's driveless because I pulled it out for the other drive. But, the problem with that 520C is it's a passive matrix display. And I like to take some of my retro computers with me when I go camping, because it's glamping. We have electricity and stuff. And just play around for a week or two doing stuff. And it was really hard to read that screen. So I think I did a short on this too. I picked up this really ugly Dell at the same auction site that I got the 520 at for $1. I think it cost me $1 in fees and then tax, so it was like $2.06 or something. But it has the right aspect ratio, and it works fine with the external VGA output from those two laptops. So I'll be able to use that with the 520C and be able to actually sit on the, outside the camper on a picnic table with the sunlight around me and stuff, and be able to work on my nerdy stuff. Now the 180C is great because it's active matrix, but it only has 4 megabytes of RAM, and apparently the RAM expansion module is unobtainium. The only way to find it is if you pick up a broken 180C and you're lucky and it's got a memory expansion in it. In fact, I bought a cousin card mistakenly thinking it was memory expansion, and opened up the case and went, oh, I guess I should have looked first. Oh well. So if anybody needs a cousin card for a PowerBook 180C, I'll make you a really good deal on it. I might even just give it away. So, because I don't need it. Oh yeah, and this is another oddball computer I have. It's the one laptop per child computer. It's the original one, the XO1. And I did a short where I got VMac or Mini VMac to work on it. Actually, someone else got Mini VMac to work on it, but I got it so that it boots up into it as if it were a Mac laptop. So I might actually give this thing away because I pretty much can't do anything else with it. I've got it's got the maximum Fedora release on it with GNOME. It's Fedora 18. I think Fedora is up to 30 now or something, so it's pretty old. I wouldn't go on the internet with it, although you can. But these are nice little laptops. I also have a Tandy TRS-80 Model 102, which is the laptop. And I'm thinking about selling that off because I'd really like to buy something that can run AUX, and it's just a novelty to me. I don't really use it, although I did enter Retro Battle Station's basic coding event with it a couple of times, but anyway. I'm starting to run out of things to talk about, believe it or not. So I think I'm going to wrap this up, unless somebody's got another question they'd like to ask me. And I'll wait for that 15-second delay to see if anyone put something in the chat. What else can I tell you? So I do Renaissance festivals, or at least the Michigan one. I've done steampunk. I'm heavily into photography. I was a film photographer. You're welcome for the Raspberry Pi. I'm glad you got it so you could use it to do something cool. So I do a lot of film photography. I've recently gotten back into it. I've restored a 4x5 press camera so that I could do large format photography. It's kind of hard to do two hobbies like that because film is expensive to do. But anyway, there it is. Voldemort. Yes, I like Voldemort. They actually came to the Michigan Renaissance Festival 2 years ago when Tartanic left because it conflicted with the one in Texas, and Voldemort, not Voldemort, Volgamut came in and were there for I think one season. They were there every weekend, and then they made it a visit before. But yeah, they're pretty cool. I really like the German bagpipe that they play. It's an early form of a bagpipe. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Volgamut. Volgamut. Yeah, I can't pronounce it. It's just like in my videos, I'm constantly calling wordly, because I can't remember that it's Wordle. But whatever. In fact, biggest editing problem I have is going and removing mistakes like that. And I say so many times when I'm recording videos, and I edit those suckers out because it drives me nuts. But that's because I'm new to this and not used to talking to an audience that I can't see. So I'll get better at it. You know, I think we all do. And editing those out is good incentive for me to get better. Put it that way. I used to do SCA. The SCA stuff is amazing, but I could never meet the quality standards and the authenticity of an SCA event, because real linen is expensive as heck, right? Yeah, we all say so a lot. And you're not from the Midwest. You're from the southern Midwest. We're the Midwest up here. We still have snow today. Now, maybe that's not really Midwest. It's like North Midwest. I don't know. I don't know why they named Michigan the Midwest. It was before we had states farther west. Yeah. I say a lot. I say so. And what else? I have a tendency when I'm a little dry to go and click, and that drives me nuts when I'm listening to my own video. Yeah, see, I did it there. I smacked my lips and made a sharp noise. Ugh. Another habit to break. And I'm still doing, what else? Missouri. Isn't that the portal to the west? Isn't that what it's considered? It's St. Louis and the arch, and you start the Oregon Trail or heading west there. That kind of thing. One of my favorite clients actually was in St. Louis. A long time ago, you usually end up, when you're going to a client site, it's because there's a problem and you're there to fix it. So it's living hell while you're there. This time it was, hey, we really like your 4GL programming environment. This was a while ago. And we would love to have you come out and show us how to do tips and tricks on how to do programming in it. So, and we'll treat you to, a nice dinner. And I'm like, great. So I flew down to St. Louis. I went to, I guess it's a big deal. It's what used to be the train depot. And it's like this glass covered, kind of big giant mall thing now. This was years ago. So maybe it's no longer there. Maybe it's bigger. I have no idea. Anyway, I went to a restaurant where they served every kind of steak you could possibly get. And it was owned by an ex-NFL player or something, so there was no small portions. I think the filet mignon I had was like 12 or 14 ounces or something. Anyway, they paid for dinner. It was great. Spent the day with them and stuff, and then I got a call from my boss saying, hey, they're having some problems at another customer site there, and you're already there, so we want you to go over and do that. So spent 2 great days with this one customer, and then I spent 3 days and 4 nights wearing the same clothes over and over again and washing things in a sink in the hotel, trying to solve somebody else's problem, and paid for that 2 days of bliss with 3, basically 4 days of a nightmare. And so there's no free lunch. You're always going to pay for it somewhere. Union Steak. Yeah, that probably was it. Damn, that was a good steak though. It's now an aquarium. So they serve fish. I don't know. Anyway. Um, Little Airplane Company there in Berkeley. STL. Cool. I started my career working for one of the major pizza brands. I'm not going to say which. And part of orientation was you had to go work in one of the restaurants for 2 weeks. Oh, Union Station. Okay, I thought Union State was a little odd, but, you know, I don't know. Yeah, Union Station. So, you know, I had to work in one of the restaurants for 2 weeks, and immediately was told I was just a waste of time. They weren't going to do anything with me because I was only there for 2 weeks. I was just, you know, trouble for them. And I'm like, okay, I understand. Where are the dishes? And he's like, what? I said, I'll wash dishes. I can do that. So I went in the back, washed dishes for 3 days. And then he came and he said, all right, I'll show you how to do, you know, land pizzas and, you know, this kind of stuff. So, you know, all it took was showing him. It was like, look, I'm not going to just sit here and do nothing. If all I can do is mop the floor and do dishes, then I'll do that. I mean, I used to do farm work when I was growing up. If there's one thing that'll teach you the value of an education, it's the back end of a cow. And I won't describe any more of it than that. My father in the 70s, when he was unemployed for a while, rented property and bought a herd of dairy cows for $1 from a buddy, and then got a subsidy check not to milk more, because that was how it worked in the 70s. Anyway, and my job, and I was in elementary school at the time, was to clean the stanchions. And that father of mine bought green hay that had not fully dried out. So you can imagine how the cows reacted to that. And when you're on, and that's the business end of the cow. Don't care about the front end. They're just, you know, anyway. So there's the crap story for you tonight. But I learned a lot doing that. And one of the things I learned was I don't want to do that kind of work. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. It's needed. And more power to the people that do that kind of stuff and like it. But damn, I wanted to go to school. You know, and it was a good incentive. So, all right. Well, I'm going to call it a night. It's getting late. So, for the 2 viewers that are left, thanks for hanging out for me this long. It was kind of interesting. Again, it's a little awkward because I'm used to having that one-to-one conversation, but I guess I can talk for quite a while if I want to. So, have a good weekend, everybody. Marchintosh was fantastic, and I couldn't have met a better group of people to do this in. And I'm actually honestly looking forward to doing 60 episodes of Hypercard programming, and it's going to take me 1.5 years. And I don't care because I'm having fun doing it. And if one person enjoys it, then it was worth it. So, this is Eric's Edge, signing off. I will see you in the next video. I guess that's my tagline now. I will see you in the next video. All right. Good night, guys.